While there are many good candidates to represent the red planet on this list, this one was chosen as it marks the beginning of nearly 2 decades of rover exploration on Mars, as well as the start of one of the most successful missions in the history of NASA. In the summer of 2003, NASA launched MER-A and MER-B, each atop their own Delta II rockets, carrying twin rovers Spirit and Opportunity. The world watched as these spacecraft began what would be a 6-month journey to the Martian surface.
6 green board. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine start and liftoff of the Delta II rocket carrying the Spirit from Earth to planet Mars.
As the months passed on Earth, Spirit continued its journey through the abyss of space until on January 4th, 2004, it was time to actually land this thing. For this landing, NASA opted for the incredibly high-tech and elegant method of wrapping the rover in bubble wrap and praying to God it doesn't explode on impact. Luckily, Mars was kind to humanity that day, and 5 months and 21 days after leaving Earth, Spirit relayed that it was operational and bouncing on the Martian surface.
We got 6 signs of bouncing on the surface. It's possible.
3 days after landing, Spirit had sent back enough data for NASA to compile this eerie image of the Martian surface, the highest resolution color image from another planet, and the first image from a rover that would remain operational for more than 7 years, nearly 30 times longer than the originally planned 92-day mission. Spirit's twin, Opportunity, would land a month later and remain operational for more than 14 years until it finally lost contact on June 10, 2018. The Mars Exploration Rover missions were the beginning of a still ongoing nearly 2 decades of rover exploration on Mars, including Curiosity and most recently Perseverance rover. Not only is this photo an incredibly impressive technological, scientific, and frankly logistical feat, but equally important in my opinion is this photo's cultural impact. Never in my lifetime has astrophysics been more present in mainstream discourse than following the release of the M87 black hole photo. The mysterious nature of black holes in general, combined with the keyword first, just created the perfect storm to catapult this photo into popular culture.
And you never come out.
This is the point of no return, where
simultaneously released by astronomers at press events.
Is the ring of superheated gas around it.
We now know that a black hole that weighs 6.5 billion times what our sun does exists in the center of M87.
This photo was so talked about that even I, as someone who is deeply interested in space and astronomy, began to wonder, okay, it's a cool image, but is it really that cool? The answer is, I don't know, but it's pretty cool. This photo was captured by the Event Horizon Telescope. But don't let the lack of plural fool you. The EHT isn't one telescope, but an array of 8 different synchronized telescopes operating together as if they were one telescope the size of our planet. More insane than the amount of telescopes, though, is the amount of data they produce. The quantity of data was so great that hard drives had to be physically flown on airplanes across the world to a whole other team of people that were responsible for creating the algorithms for processing the data. I don't even want to know what the org chart for this project looked like. The resulting image was this: 4.5 petabytes of data processed down to an image not more than a couple of megabytes. A couple of megabytes that provided the first visual confirmation for century-old mathematical theories, and likely introduced a significant fraction of the population to the world of astronomy and astrophysics. This breathtaking photo from the shadow of Saturn is the product of a collaboration between 3 space agencies, NASA, ESA, and ASI, and a 15-year interplanetary journey. Back in 1988, NASA approached the European Space Agency with an idea of a great collaborative mission to explore Saturn and one of its particularly interesting moons, Titan. Europe agreed and Cassini development began. After a decade of smooth development with 0 roadblocks, Cassini launched on October 5, 1997.
2, 1,
and liftoff of the Cassini spacecraft on a billion-mile trek to Saturn. We have cleared the tower, and the Cassini spacecraft is on its way to Saturn.
7 years later, after completing 2 flybys of Venus, a test of Einstein's theory of general relativity, and a flyby of Jupiter, Cassini entered the orbit of Saturn, beginning its more than decade-long journey in orbit of the ringed planet. Among this gallery of surreal extraterrestrial photos, this one was selected in particular, and for a reason that maybe wasn't immediately apparent. Slightly below the rings of Saturn, you'll notice a uniquely bright star with a bluish tint. The interesting thing about this star is that it isn't a star at all. You're looking at Earth, and barely visible to the right of it, our moon. Earth and its only moon, a speck among the stars, as photographed from billions of miles away. On September 15, 2017, Cassini executed a final plunge into Saturn's atmosphere, bringing a cinematic end to what one JPL scientist described as a 13-year marathon of scientific discovery.
The signal from the spacecraft is gone, and within the next 45 seconds, so will be the spacecraft. I hope you're all as deeply proud of this amazing accomplishment. Congratulations to you all. This has been an incredible mission, an incredible spacecraft, and you're all an incredible team. I'm going to call this the end of mission. Project Manager, off the net.
At number 3 on the list is the predecessor to the previous image, the original distant Earth photo captured 30 years ago by Voyager 1, Carl Sagan's pale blue dot. The twin Voyager spacecraft were launched with 2 main objectives: study the outer solar system, and then, eventually, to leave our solar system and explore the interstellar dark. Unlike Cassini or the Mars rovers, these spacecraft have neither a scheduled end date or a final destination. Eventually, they will lose contact with us on Earth, but the Voyagers will continue to drift, outliving us and the planet we inhabit. With this in mind, NASA appointed a committee to construct a golden record to attach to the spacecraft, a sort of humanity memorabilia piece to represent Earth and its inhabitants to any intelligent alien species who were able to retrieve the spacecraft from its perpetual drift. The head of this committee, Carl Sagan, the greatest science communicator to ever live. The golden record was Sagan's first contribution to the Voyager missions. His other significant contribution to the legacy of Voyager was this photo. After Voyager 1 passed Saturn, Sagan made a request to NASA to direct the spacecraft to take a photo of Earth. That sounds simple enough, but it wasn't an easy decision to make. For one, the Voyager probe had limited battery power. Every single movement of the spacecraft had to be extremely deliberate. Additionally, there was concern that taking a photo of an object so close to the sun would damage the instruments on the spacecraft that were specifically tuned for the most remote areas of the solar system, where the sunlight is scarce. The biggest point of contention from people against the idea, though, was that the photograph wouldn't actually provide any new information. We already know what the Earth looks like. There wouldn't be any value in another photograph of Earth. Sagan acknowledged that the photo wouldn't have any scientific value, but argued that there was value in the perspective it would give humanity, that along with doing important science, part of the responsibility of NASA was to convey the lessons of science to people who had no science background. And Sagan was right. On February 14, 1990, Sagan's decade-long effort to get NASA to agree to the most distant photo of home was finally put into action, and Voyager sent back the most important piece of its legacy. A photo revealing Earth as an insignificant speck in the cosmos to a world that had maybe never considered it as such. Four years later, Sagan published a book about the photo, and included in it the famous pale blue dot passage, one of his most effective pieces of writing.
There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world.
There are a few paradigm-shifting moments in the history of astronomy. Copernicus devising a heliocentric model for our solar system, Galileo viewing the moons of Jupiter through his newly invented telescope, Kepler explaining the motions of the planets. These moments are few and far between, but they permanently shape our understanding of the universe. This photo is one of those moments. As you can imagine, it is incredibly difficult to get access to time with Hubble. The large majority of Hubble time is budgeted far in advance via approved proposals that are written with very clear and concrete objectives. However, 10% of the time with Hubble is marked as director's discretionary time. Traditionally, director's discretionary time is used to explore unexpected phenomena that don't have time to go through the system, such as supernova. Occasionally, though, director's discretionary time is used to explore the personal curiosities of whoever is acting director. In 1995, Hubble director Robert Williams decided that he was going to allocate a significant portion of his limited time to pointing the telescope at nothing. The idea was to use the unique advantages of Hubble to see if they could identify anything interesting in an area containing no nearby sources of light. Even so, using Hubble time to look at nothing was a controversial decision to say the least. But he was the director, and so after a multiple-month process of finding the area of sky that was the most empty, that's where Hubble pointed for 10 days in December of 1995. The result exceeded even the most optimistic of predictions. Galaxies, hundreds of them closely packed in pixels widely spread across time, each one its own system of stars uniquely shaped and colored. Galaxies that were functionally invisible when viewed through the Earth's atmosphere, suddenly revealed as exhibits for scientific study. The scientific value of this photo is immeasurable. By 2014, it had been cited in scientific papers over 900 times. Papers on redshift, star formation, the accelerating expanse of the universe, and the landscape of the early cosmos. It's a snapshot of the past, the light from the furthest galaxy is more than 13 billion years old, and it's a window into the future, the image that is still being used to create projections for the fate of our universe. For the greatest space photo of all time, we, of course, turn to humanity's grandest achievement, the Apollo missions. While this whole list could have been Apollo photographs, and some would argue it should be, I felt it was necessary to pick one in the interest of photo diversity. And what other photo than Earthrise? This now iconic photo was taken by the crew of Apollo 8, the first men to orbit the moon. Before NASA could attempt a lunar landing, they decided that a lunar orbiting was a necessary stepping stone. Additionally, the United States was falling behind in the space race, and, well, a manned spacecraft entering lunar orbit was a milestone in and of itself. The crew selected for this mission was Mission Commander Frank Borman, who had previously flown on Gemini 7, Jim Lovell, who was also a veteran of Gemini 7, as well as Gemini 12, and who would go on to fly on Apollo 13, and the man who actually took the photo, William Anders. Apollo 8 launched via Saturn V rocket on December 21, 1968. Three days later, on Christmas Eve, the crew had been pulled into lunar orbit and had begun their gravitationally assisted U-turn back home. During this time, there was a 30-minute period when the crew was passing over the far side of the moon that contact with mission control was impossible. 3 men, orders of magnitude further from Earth than any human had gone before, were flying above the lunar surface totally isolated from humanity, their view of home obstructed by the moon. As Earth began to return into view of the crew, William Anders, taken by the beauty of Earth rising over the surface of a foreign celestial body, pointed his camera towards Earth for an unscheduled photo of home.
Hey, don't take that, it's not scheduled. Oh my God, look at that picture over there. There's the Earth coming up. Wow, that's pretty.
And from the crew of Apollo